Hello and welcome to the Big Bros podcast. If it's your first time joining, my name is Ilan and I'm joined by my lovely friend and co-host, Jeremy. How are you?
I'm well, mate. How are you?
I'm pretty good, man. I'm pretty good. It's a cool episode that we're talking about today. We got a little bit of this theme going around when we recorded our 100th, and it's the idea whether your 20s should be reserved for leveling up or for hustling.
Yeah, as Alex Hormozy puts it, work it up or live it up in your 20s. It's a cool theme, one all too relevant for us and for many people, as we know from all the questions that we received in the 100th. So keen to dive into it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that when I look at this, it's almost like a binary. It's presented as a binary option, right? Either you live it up or you work it up. But I don't believe that. I believe you can do both. And I think you would agree. And based off, I think, both of our experiences throughout navigating our 20s, you can do both. So the question is how?
Exactly. And I think a lot of today, well, I know a lot of today will be directed to what I've experienced personally, and I think what you've experienced personally as well. So hopefully you guys can take a bit out of that from our anecdotal evidence, because when I think of this topic, I know a lot of you guys can feel a bit stressed out from it when you're listening to this topic. Is, should I be doing this or should I be doing that? Should I be working my ass off in my 20s or should I be taking it easy and just chilling and going with the flow and not worried about income, not worried about uni, not worried about what I'm studying, what I'm going to be working in? It needs to be a bit of both. You need to have some level of direction, and we'll talk about how much direction maybe is too much and how sometimes having no direction can actually cause you even more anxiety than having too much direction. So it's about finding that happy medium. So I think when I start off with me going into my early 20s, I want to take it back there. So early 20s, fresh out of high school, something I did was take a gap year firstly. Now that was a very direct approach for me in that time. It wasn't an approach of, I'm not sure what I want to do with my life yet. I'm not sure what I want to study. It was very much, I know when I finished school, I wanted to take a gap year. I wanted to pencil in that time off so that when I was finished, I knew I could come back and really lock into a specific degree, to a specific course. I knew at the time what I wanted to do in terms of what degree I want to study. Very lucky. A lot of people don't know what they want to do as a 19-year-old. So I'm very fortunate that I did know. But I also feel like I did know because I put myself in situations where I wanted to expose myself to things that interested in me. And that's a key point when knowing what you want to do, is exposing yourself to things that interest you, and sometimes exposing yourself to things that don't interest you, because if you expose yourself to things that don't interest you, at least you get an idea of what you actually hate. So it's a bit of a process of elimination. So that was as a 19-year-old for me, having that time period off, but knowing that when I'm going to come back in, I was going to lock in and get going with what I wanted to do as a 20-year-old, as a late 19-year-old going into my 20s. That was me. What was it like for you as a 19-year-old?
As a 19-year-old for me, I was very much not in a situation where I was going to take a gap year, and albeit it could have been nice, but I wouldn't change how I did things, right? Because if it wasn't for my year when I was 19, because that was a very experimental year with me in terms of studies, in terms of what I wanted to commit myself to academically, and then figure out what I wanted to do career-wise. It sounds like you kind of knew you wanted to do physio. I didn't really know which degree I wanted to commit myself to. When I was 19, I chose an arts degree to initially try and get into a law degree. But that arts degree turned into an experimentation year where I was able to actually mix and match with various subjects. And I found my love in psychology, and I committed and went full guns blazing into that degree. And now I'm in my final year of studies, which is kind of scary now thinking about how much time has passed. But I'm also conscious that I could have also had that sort of year where I didn't find out what I wanted to do. And there are so many people out there who may be at 25 who still haven't figured it out. And that's a completely normal thing. I think in a lot of ways, me and you are actually on the very lucky and fortunate side. And the reason I say that is because it's not that easy to figure out what you want to do off the outset. It's not that easy to be observant of what you're good at and what you're not so good at, because at 19 or 20, you're not really good at anything. So the only thing you have to trade, the only asset you have is hormones, you would say, is time. So you trade out that time to try and figure out what you like, what you need to learn about yourself, and ultimately what you can do to prioritize the things you need to do in your 20s to level up. So kind of with that in mind, I think that in your 20s, one thing that you should do regardless, and this doesn't mean that you can't have fun or anything like that, is that you prioritize being really open-minded and prioritize learning and consistently learning. Because if time is your only asset and you don't have knowledge and skills, you can trade that time in order to trade in skills, resources, and so forth. And that resource could be your knowledge and skills ultimately, right? And I think that for a lot of people, depending on the culture you come from, depending on kind of your personality, some people live their 20s in mode A, which is, I got to please my parents, I got to go to university, I got to graduate from university, get that great job, make a fuck ton of money, not have fun, because I want to put all my eggs in that one mode A basket. And the trade-off there is, you made the trade-off that you traded your time for all these skills, and now you got money and you got maybe a little bit of status, but you're probably a little bit burnt out because you probably haven't traveled the world. You probably haven't experimented with what you truly want to do. You've likely chosen an area career-wise that's safe rather than something that maybe engages with a deeper level purpose and passion, or you may have, but chances are you haven't if you've gone down that mode A. So, and then you end up at 30 thinking like, great, this has been an awesome from a practical aspect, but I haven't really lived it up. And then there's the polar opposite, the person who may start a degree, then drop out. They might have like 5 different business ventures they start throughout their 20s, but they half-ass everything. They don't commit to one solid thing. You'll see this person also travel for a few months at a time, get back, try something else. And then by the time they get to their 30s, they have all these kind of like half-assed projects that have been started but not finished. And you know what? In a lot of ways, that person who's on mode B hasn't really achieved, or is in a way in as shit as a position as person A, because one's really burnt out and the other person is just bloody directionless.
And we mentioned that is what it might seem like towards the 30s. I think it's even earlier. I think we can even see that amongst people that we know of in the mid-20s stage, and this is like 6-7 years out of school now for us.
What do you think it contributes to that?
What's the question? What do
so
you
the
mean?
question is like, what do you think it is that brings up that intensity of feeling? Because I reckon it's the social comparison game.
Yeah, social comparison is one thing where, look, I think we're always going to socially compare. It's to what extent you do it that is healthy versus unhealthy. I think a little bit of social comparison is very healthy, because it kind of puts some fire under your bum and makes you go out there and achieve things and be inspired by others in your circle. Hopefully use what they're doing and see what they're doing as inspiration, as admiration. Don't look at it as envy. People that look at these achievements and successes from others in their circle that are similar ages to them perhaps, or maybe even younger, but have gone out there and achieved, someone that denigrates that, condemns that, looks at that as envy and jealousy, is someone that isn't self-sufficient within themselves. A self-sufficient person might socially compare, but they'll look at that and think, fuck yeah, that is awesome for them. I hope they go out and achieve what they want to achieve. Or they might take a leaf out of their book and think, how can I employ something that they've done into what maybe I'm employing in my life to upskill what I'm doing? That is the mindset of a winner. And you mentioned before the comparison between that person that goes into a degree that maybe they hate, but they do it because perhaps their parents have wanted them to do it, and they believe that that is the route to go and get success and get money, and they have therefore sacrificed a lot of other things in their life, like perhaps traveling, like perhaps going with the flow and saying yes to certain opportunities that they might want to do. Versus the contrast of that person that has had no chase and no drive to do anything academic or career based or leveling up as any form of career, and all they've done is just bludge and go with the flow. And it's funny that I think, like you mentioned, both of those outcomes have the same finish line, whereas person A and person B, they both end up being anxious for different purposes. Person A is anxious because they haven't had fun and they haven't had anything to fall back on and to chill and to, look back on their 20s and think, you know what, that was a fucking sick time, or that was a sick experience, because all they've been doing is working up their 20s. And then person B is anxious because they don't have that career aspect to it, or that personal drive to go out and chase something from a more career perspective, because all they've done is just bludge and travel and chill. So both of them are anxious for different reasons. So that is where work it up versus live it up. It has to be that compromise. It has to be that little bit of both. And I think for me, what pisses me off the most in people, and we see this amongst our age and older, what really grinds my gears are those people that complain about not knowing what the hell they want to do with their lives, but they haven't gone and done anything. They haven't gone and tried anything. And that's where I like what you were saying before about it needs to be a two-step thing to go out and chase something. It needs to be, are you putting in time to certain things? Are you trying new things? And two, are you actually trying to learn? Are you exposing yourself? Are you saying yes? If you're a person that doesn't know what the hell that they want to do, you're in your 20s, I'll cut some slack for people in their very early 20s. If you're listening and you're 21, you're 22, still finding your feet, it applies as well, but maybe not to the same extent as if you're like a 25, 26, 27-year-old and you've got absolutely no idea. Ask yourself those two questions. Are you actually exposing yourself to certain things, different things, saying yes to opportunities and trying to learn different skills and have interest in different areas in life? Are you trying to do these things, or are you just sitting back playing Xbox, twiddling your thumbs and thinking, fuck it, I'm just going to continue working in a chicken shop and make a bit of extra cash and go fuck off to Europe again? Because if that's all you're doing and you're rinsing and repeating, are you actually chasing something that you want to chase, and is it just you to blame?
Yeah, and I suppose it comes down to your values as well. If you're an ambitious person, if you've got general ambition, then you're probably going to have a bit of anxiety. But if you have specific ambition, you're going to have direction. And the reason that is because at least with specific ambition, you can pick apart the steps you need to do to get to where you want to be.
So let's dumb that down. So general ambition being, I want to be successful and make money and have a white picket fence and a family and be able to travel the world.
It's very general, right?
General ambition, yeah.
How are you going to get there?
Exactly. Well, what are the steps you're going to do to get there?
Well,
versus specific ambition.
Well, when you start asking yourself, how am I going to get from general ambition to what I want, that naturally leads down the path to specific ambition, because you're going to start asking yourself the right questions. For that person who might be working in a chicken shop or doing a part-time job, firstly, let's assume they're content.
Also, no hate to chicken shop workers.
Yeah, you worked in one,
I
mate.
worked in a chicken shop for 6 years, so I'm only saying that because it's very close to home. So, love to the chicken shop workers, but, be a chicken shop worker with purpose.
Yeah,
that's all I'm saying.
And that's what I have, people do whatever they want. If they want to work that sort of job, credit to them. At least they're doing something that they want to do and they're doing it with gusto. But for the people who want to have they want to, advance themselves in some sort of way, maybe they want to go to uni and get that degree or learn a specific skill, and they just haven't had the fire in the belly to get to that point. Something to note is that, unfortunately, whether we like to admit it or not, the world is bloody competitive. Try and put a bid out for a rental in Melbourne. That's competition, right? You are ultimately pitted against a lot of other people. And
if you're a bum, nobody's going to feel sorry for you.
Well, kind of. If
you're not trying to get yourself out of it, the harsh reality is no one's going to feel sorry for you.
Yeah, because look, the reality is I think we're all kind of concerned with ourselves as well. Yeah. And there's an element of it as well that the world is super competitive, what can you do to help yourself be someone who's competitive? Like, what's going to be something special about you? What's something you can do to contribute to society? What kind of value can you add, right? Like, people go to become doctors. Now, not everyone is suited to become doctors, and not everyone should become doctors, but doctors provide immense value in the world. In fact, I'm going to one on Wednesday because I want to figure out what this pain is in my lap, because that's been quite distressing. But that is a value exchange, isn't it? You pay money, you go to someone who can help you in that aspect. Another thing to remember as well well is that it's fine if you haven't figured it out, but start looking at process steps. When we had Kate Bursky on, great episode, that was something where I really resonated with what she said is like, sometimes you don't need to think about the outcome per se, but at least start looking at the process and visualizing what that process looks like. And I think for a lot of people, it might be helpful to just start stripping away, like, okay, if I'm going to work it up and also live it up in my 20s, what does that look like? And I think that also defines, how are you going to spend the next year or so? Are you going to spend 6 months working and then you're going to travel? Or are you going to spend 6 months studying? Or are you going to get a safe 9-to-5 job, 4 weeks annual leave? Define what work-life balance means to you as well, I reckon.
I like that point about work-life balance being different for everyone. For Alex Hormozy, it's working all the time. For some people, it's being a influencer online, making money on the go and not having their bum on the seat typing away at a desk. It's different for everyone. So finding that work-life balance will look different from you to person B. Now, I think with that as well, it's about being realistic too. Not always are you going to be able to travel. Not always are you going to be able to work. You're going to have to factor in family. It's like what we spoke about in last week's episode. There are going to be certain sacrifices or certain trade-offs. And that is life.
Yeah, there's no solutions, only trade-offs.
No solutions, only trade-offs as well. But when it comes to that work-life balance, it tastes so much sweeter when you have completed something, like a period of work that might have been really hard, or a task that you were really working on for a long period of time, and you've got something at the end of that is like a little bit of a reward. So for me, I know that's like traveling. That is traveling in a way. I've got 4 weeks off a year as annual leave. Last year, I actually didn't take any because I was just in a mindset where I really wanted to be head down, bum up, get to work, learn the ropes of my new job as a new graduate, and traveling I was happy to put on the back burner. This year I'm blessed with a little bit of more extra time because I accumulated that extra amount of leave.
Could I ask you a question though? Because you still had work-life balance, but your balance looked like not just traveling. Your balance was taking care of your health, seeing friends, doing the things that you want to do outside of working.
Yeah, well, for me, it was a non-negotiable, those things. So like we come back to that often in episodes, is find what your non-negotiables are. For me, that's going to the gym, that's going for walks, that's seeing my friends, that's taking it easy around family as well, that's having dinners, that's eating some junk food from time to time. It's all of these different things that make me happy apart from the career. The career is just one aspect of your life. It is not your identity. And knowing that is so important because it allows you to stay reinvigorated when it is time to come to work. As soon as you attach yourself to your identity, being what it is you work in or what it is you study in, if that is your identity, if you get to a party and that is all you've got to talk about, already you might find yourself in a bit of a trap and in a bit of a problem, because if that gets taken away from you, then what else are you falling back on? What else is making you happy in life? What else can you bring to the table? And back to my previous point about, using that work-life balance and using, for me, travel as a bit of a reward, it makes me really reinvigorated when I am head down, bum up. When you're in those times where maybe it is a little bit tough, knowing that, okay, I'm going to reward myself with this week away somewhere in 3 months' time or whatever. Knowing that can just give you a little bit of motivation, and there's nothing wrong with realizing that something is giving you motivation. It's perfectly healthy, and if that means it can get you going for an extended amount of time when times might be tough, that's fine, because sometimes in life shit gets tough, and as humans we just need a little bit of grit. I think too often we're too prepared to just pull the pin, complain, and quit just because things are a little bit tough. Sometimes it's just about having that grit, recognizing times are tough, but if you can use something that you enjoy as a little bit of motivation to get to, and use that as a little bit of a reset, use it to your advantage.
So make sure you're running the right race.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. You said find that grit, but you got to find that grit. You want to find that grit when you're running the race that you want to be running, not someone else's race. And that applies a lot to the mode A, the person in mode A who has gone down the career to almost accomplish what their parents have set out for them to do, to almost set out and achieve what social expectations demand of them, right? Get the cushy job, but then they're in the wrong race in a lot of ways because they're not doing what they truly want to be doing, and they never gave themselves the time, like a mode person B, to actually look at the things like experimenting. So it's like you got to take from both cups at the same time. Something I am a huge fan of, and doesn't have to be exclusive to your 20s, but you should do it in your 20s, and it's the idea that you should diversify your personality stocks. Is Jeremy just the physio, or is Jeremy also the podcaster? Is Jeremy just the podcaster and physio, or is he also an older brother? Is Jeremy a boyfriend, a friend? You can see where I'm going with this, right? Yeah. We have a lot of time to trade out, obviously, in our 20s. So why not trade it out to see where we can almost diversify our personality stocks? In the same way, if you're investing in the stock market, if you put all your money in one stock and it crashes, well, you're going to be identifying with that loss. But what this does, like for example, for me, it's the podcast, it's the psych, it's me as a friend, as a family member. It's hobbies as well, like jiu-jitsu. It's like if I'm really bad in one stock, then it's not going to impact all the other stocks. So
you don't go down in value as a person overall. It just might be a little bit of a decrease in one aspect. And that's okay, because that's called being human.
Exactly. And I think the more you do that, the less you identify with certain things. And I think as humans, especially in our 20s, we tend to identify so much with ebbs and flows. And I think that speaks to the grit aspect as well. If you over-identify with every outcome, if you're so outcome-oriented, you can't really focus on the process. And just focusing on the outcome alone is not sustainable. So I think if you're in your 20s, just kind of to go back to the episode title, being that if you should work it up or live it up, you should do both. Diversify your personality stocks such that you can do both. I can speak from personal experience. I'm probably more so, I've done a good job of taking parts from A and B, but I still would like to tap into B a little bit more. And by tapping into B a little bit more, that means maybe traveling. I've studied for 7 years, man. I can smell the finish line. I am so excited. And the reason I'm excited is not just because I'm probably not going to have to write another assignment after this year, but it's more so the fact that I'll have opportunities to do the things that maybe I put on the back burner. Maybe it's a longer travel trip. So this, in a lot of ways, has been a great means of kind of diversifying my personality stocks, right? For the first 7 years of me studying and so forth, I've developed a skill set which is added to one stock. But what do the next 5-6 years look like, and what kind of stocks am I going to add?
I reckon a good litmus test for people listening, and when it comes to this topic, if you feel like you're heavily identifying with one thing in particular, be it your degree, be it your workplace, be it the fact that you're in a relationship, whatever it is, next time you're at a party, next time you're at a social event, and that person says to you, how's life? What are you getting up to? See where your mind diverts. See if your initial response is your career, what you're studying, your relationship, and see if you are happy to maybe talk about something else. See if you're happy to talk about what you just ate for breakfast. Maybe that new thing you tried on the weekend. You tried pickleball for the first time, whatever it might be. See if you can happily and enthusiastically talk about something else that you wouldn't typically identify as. And I think that little litmus test can either serve really well in terms of showing you some self-encouragement that, you know what, I actually do have a lot to me in my personality. I actually can enjoy a lot of different things. I can be productive in different ways, and I've got a lot of different likes and interests that maybe I just don't talk about often. Or on the other hand, if you're that person where you actually struggle to talk about something else other than work, other than uni, other than your boyfriend or your girlfriend, that can also be a nice wake-up call as to, hey, maybe I just need to now diversify my personality a bit more and try increase myself as a stock that people might want to buy into.
I fucking love that. I think that's an excellent way to wrap up this episode, because I think the reality is, whether you want to work it up or live it up, the best thing you can do is diversify your personality stock, isn't it? Right? You want to, because the thing is, you're not going to be able to diversify much in your 30s and 40s. Like, you might, but
you've got more responsibilities.
Yeah. I mean, now is a great time. I think in your 20s, you should push those limits. Try as many things as possible, because
got time.
The more you diversify, the more chances one stock might actually go and skyrocket. So why not actually put that effort in?
Put that effort in and use this time to your advantage. Like, if there is that business venture, if there is that side hustle, just fucking give it a go. Why not? Because the worst thing that it does is fail. And when I say fail, not fail in terms of just, you not making any money, but, it might just mean that you've tried something and you've learnt a bunch of skills. Yeah, you might not have made money, let's just say, if that's what your goal is, or you might not have grown a following if that's what your goal was. But at least you tried something and you learnt skills, and it's okay if it's not for you. If you're scared of, and this can be a whole nother episode in itself, but if you're scared of societal humiliation, if you're scared of just being seen as someone that didn't achieve what they set out to in the eyes of the public, ask them whether they have been refraining from their goals and whether they have been refraining from taking that leap of faith that you did, and then they can come back to you. That's a whole nother episode in itself. But in summary, it's just about using time to your advantage in your 20s, trying new things. If you really don't know what you want to do and you haven't really found that passion, that purpose yet, all those buzzwords, ask yourself whether you're trying shit out, because that is going to be your key litmus test to self-reevaluate and to come back and to propel yourself in future as well. So reevaluate with trying new things, forever learning, and just chilling and going with the flow and having fun in the process. Don't get stuck into just the whole thing of, I need to only work and I only need to travel. It definitely is that mixture of both.
Well said, man. On that note, guys, hope you guys have a lovely rest of your Tuesday and a lovely week.
Bye-bye.